Can an AI chatbot actually help someone change their mind about deeply held convictions? Even something as complex as sticky as a conspiracy theory. Just think about that for a moment. Today, we're unpacking a really groundbreaking research article. It's from the Harvard Kennedy School Misinformation Review, published just this past December 2024.
That's right. And this study, it's led by authors like Meyer, Adam Enders, and their colleagues. And they delve into some, well, remarkably novel methods for trying to diminish belief in conspiracy theories. What makes it so compelling, I think, is its unique approach. It leverages the power of self-reflection and, yes, artificial intelligence, which is quite the combination.
Absolutely. So our mission in this deep dive is to really understand how these new interventions work. Who are they most effective for? And maybe most importantly, what does this all imply for navigating information and misinformation in our, well, increasingly digital world? We'll explore the subtle mechanisms behind potentially changing minds without ever introducing new facts. That's key. And consider the exciting and maybe sometimes concerning potential of AI in shaping public belief. You might be surprised by what they found. Okay, let's unpack this.
Sounds good.
So it really feels like everywhere we look these days, conspiracy theories are just bubbling up. They're influencing conversations, shaping perceptions. It's hard to ignore.
Oh, definitely. And the research certainly bears that out. There's been a dramatic surge in studies dedicated to understanding conspiracy theories, especially over the last 15 years or so. A lot of this seems to be spurred on by significant global events. Think about the heightened political polarization during, say, the Trump presidency, or the widespread anxieties and uncertainties brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right, those big society-shaking events.
They created fertile ground, you could say. And the field of study has just exploded as researchers try to make sense of it all. And for very good reason, I should add.
Yeah, why is that? Why the intense focus?
Well, these aren't just harmless fringe ideas, confined to some obscure corner of the internet. There are substantial real-world societal concerns linked to these beliefs. Research consistently shows associations with what academics call non-normative behaviors, so things like an increased propensity for certain types of crime or widespread vaccine refusal, which obviously impacts public health.
There's a Gucci back there.
And even instances of political violence. If you look at the work of Jolly and colleagues back in 2022, for instance, it really highlights these dangerous connections. Journalists, too, have voiced serious concerns. They observe how a belief in these narratives can promote dangerous individual actions and, perhaps even more broadly, influence public policy in ways that can be, well, detrimental to society as a whole. The stakes are incredibly high.
Okay, so given this growing and clearly urgent concern about their impact, what have researchers tried to do about it so far? What are some of the common strategies we've seen explored to try and mitigate these beliefs?
Well, there's been quite a range of approaches attempted, each with its own sort of merits and limitations. One common set of interventions involves something called inoculation methods.
Inoculation, like a vaccine.
Kind of, yeah. The idea is to expose individuals to small, weakened bits of misinformation, or maybe the rhetorical techniques often used by people spreading misinformation. It's almost like a mental vaccine intended to help you spot suspect content later on and build up some resistance.
Interesting approach. What else?
Other techniques have tried priming resistance to persuasion, sometimes using things like engaging online games. The hope there is to make the learning process maybe stickier, more enjoyable. Then there's the more direct approach. The correction of existing beliefs. This involves, hitting people with authoritative information, counter evidence, or even in some cases attempting ridicule, though that can be risky.
Yeah, I can see that backfiring.
It often does. And some strategies have also looked at leveraging messages from trusted leaders within an individual's own social group. The idea is that an in-group voice might be more persuasive than some external authority figure.
Okay, so a variety of tactics. But how successful have these traditional methods actually been? Because, from what I understand, changing deeply entrenched beliefs, especially ones tied to emotion or identity, it's incredibly difficult. It often feels like trying to correct someone just makes them dig their heels in even deeper.
That's certainly the general finding in the literature, and your intuition is spot on there. Traditional corrective measures, particularly when it comes to these entrenched conspiracy theory beliefs, they have what the research diplomatically calls a spotty track record.
Spotty, right.
It's been a real challenge to effectively shift someone's conviction, and you hit on a key point. Sometimes that direct challenge can indeed backfire spectacularly. There are a few proposed and pretty well-researched reasons for this resistance that make these beliefs so incredibly sticky.
Okay, let's unpack some of those. What makes these particular beliefs so resistant to change? Is it just the nature of the belief itself, or are there, like, psychological factors involved too?
It's absolutely a combination of both. For one, there are significant psychological factors at play. Researchers have noted that certain personality traits, often associated with a higher tendency to believe conspiracy theories, can make people resistant.
Like what kind of traits?
Well, things like narcissism, for example. If challenging a belief feels like a personal affront, like an attack on their intelligence, they're less likely to engage genuinely. Or a general tendency toward conflict. Some people just see any discussion as an argument to be won, not a search for truth.
So it becomes about defending themselves, not evaluating the idea.
Pretty much. They're defending a position, their identity, perhaps. Beyond individual psychology, though, there's also the very nature of conspiracy theories themselves that contributes to their stickiness, their malleability, their unfalsifiable quality.
Falsifiable, meaning you can't prove them wrong.
In many cases, yes. They can be incredibly adaptable, kind of self-sealing. For example, imagine you present clear, maybe irrefutable evidence that contradicts a specific conspiracy theory. A believer might not see that as disproof at all. Instead, they might interpret a lack of evidence or even evidence against the theory as further proof of a deep, pervasive cover-up. Of course there's no evidence, they're experts at hiding it, or that contradictory evidence was planted by the conspirators.
So it creates this kind of closed loop. Any evidence against it just gets folded back into the theory itself.
That's a good way to put it. It creates a closed loop where any attempt to disprove the theory actually ends up reinforcing it for the believer. This dynamic means that conspiracy theory beliefs have often been observed to be quite stable, both at the level of large populations and within individuals over time. It's truly a tough nut to crack.
Wow.
Which makes direct debunking often ineffective, or sometimes even worse, counterproductive.
It certainly sounds like it. So if direct correction is often like, hitting your head against a brick wall, how do we even begin to chip away at such deeply held convictions? If you can't force a change, how do you maybe gently invite it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where the researchers in this study turned to some really innovative psychological concepts. One key idea is known as the illusion of explanatory depth.
Yeah, illusion of explanatory depth. Okay, that sounds intriguing. Walk us through that idea.
Sure. It's a fascinating concept and highly relevant here. It basically suggests that people frequently overestimate how well they actually understand the mechanics of things. Everyday objects, natural phenomena, even complex social and political systems. Think about something simple, like how a zipper works, or maybe how a toilet flushes. Most of us have a general idea, right? We know what it does.
Yeah, I pull the zipper up, I flush the handles. Got it.
Right. But if you were pressed to explain every single component, every little lever, every pipe, every single step in the process in detail, you'd likely hit a wall pretty quickly. You'd realize your understanding is more superficial than you thought.
That's so true. I definitely feel that way about, most technology. How Wi-Fi actually works. How my smartphone does what it does. I know it functions, but the how.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fuzzy beyond the basics. I'm definitely guilty of that illusion.
We all are, to some extent. Or think about something more complex, like how a national economy actually functions beyond, basic supply and demand. You might understand the general principles, but explaining all the intricate feedback loops, monetary policies, global trade impacts, much, much harder. The core of this illusion is that when individuals are prompted to actually explain something they thought they understood thoroughly, they often realize the significant gaps in their own knowledge. And here's the crucial part. Their confidence in their understanding tends to diminish in that moment of realization.
So forcing the explanation makes you realize you don't know as much as you thought, and your confidence drops.
Precisely. They become a bit more humble about their own grasp of the subject. And this isn't just about physical objects or systems. It applies to our beliefs, even our political stances too.
Okay, how does that work for political beliefs?
Well, studies have extended this concept quite brilliantly. For instance, asking people to explain how a favored policy, say a complex tax reform or a healthcare initiative, would actually achieve its stated goal, step by step, that can surprisingly reduce their support for that policy.
Really? Just explaining it makes them less supportive?
Often, yes. because they realize their understanding was perhaps superficial or they can't actually articulate the causal chain. This, in turn, can even lead to a decrease in political polarization as people become less dogmatic, less certain about their initial, maybe simplistic view.
That's fascinating.
And here's the key connection for our discussion today. Some research suggests that individuals who are more prone to this illusion of explanatory depth are also more likely to believe conspiracy theories.
Okay, so the less deeply they understand things, the more likely they might be to accept a simple, albeit conspiratorial, explanation.
That's one interpretation. But the flip side is, this suggests that encouraging that kind of critical self-examination, that moment of realizing, wait, I don't actually know the mechanics of this as well as I thought I did, might be a powerful pathway to reducing confidence in those unsupported beliefs. It turns the focus inward onto their own knowledge and understanding rather than outward onto attacking the belief itself.
That's a really clever, almost gentle approach. It avoids the direct confrontation that seems to fail so often. So if the goal is to get people to reflect on their own understanding in this way, how do you scale that? Deep personal reflection doesn't seem like something you can easily measure or apply to a large representative group. It sounds inherently slow, maybe resource-intensive.
You've hit on the core challenge, and this brings us to a conversational method known as street epistemology. Have you heard of this?
I think I've heard the term, but I'm not entirely sure what it entails. It sounds like philosophy on the sidewalk.
Hey, sort of.
Yeah.
It's a unique conversational approach where you engage people in discussions about their beliefs, often in public settings, hence the street part. But the central aim is not to directly debate or persuade someone to change their mind. That's crucial.
Okay, so what is the aim then?
Instead, it's about delving into how a person arrived at their beliefs. It explores the reliability of their methods for discerning truth. Think of it as a gentle probing, a series of open-ended questions designed to encourage internal reflection about their own reasoning, the foundation of their convictions.
Can you give an example? Like, what would a street epistemologist ask?
Sure. Instead of arguing against someone's belief, they might ask things like, what evidence led you to believe that? Or, how confident are you in that belief, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10? Or even, what would it take? What kind of evidence would cause you to reconsider that belief?
Ah, I see. So it's all about the process of belief formation and justification, not attacking the belief itself. It's a subtle but really profound shift in focus.
It is indeed. But historically, this method has primarily garnered anecdotal support. You hear stories from practitioners about successful conversations where people reevaluated their beliefs, but
it's hard to study scientifically.
very. The interactive, often long-form conversations it involves just make it incredibly difficult and costly to test with large representative samples in a rigorous, controlled way. It's tough to gather enough empirical data to move beyond individual stories to statistically significant findings. That's been the major hurdle for studying its effectiveness scientifically.
Right. Which brings us back to this study, because this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? The researchers here found an ingenious way to bridge that gap, to test these ideas at scale.
They really did. This is a huge step forward for this type of intervention research. They essentially addressed that scalability challenge by taking key techniques from the toolkit of street epistemology. Things like probing for reasons, probing for reservations, and isolating them. They tested these components in a more controlled, almost modular manner.
Making it feasible to apply across a large sample size.
Precisely. Moving it beyond just anecdotal evidence to actual, robust empirical validation. It's a true innovation in the field, combining the insights of street epistemology with the rigor of experimental design.
Okay. With that foundation laid the challenge of changing minds, the potential of self-reflection, and the ideas from street epistemology, let's dive into the ingenious way these researchers actually put these theories to the test in their study.
Great. So just to recap the team, the research was conducted by Meyer from the University of Hamburg, Adam Enders from the University of Louisville, and then Casey Klofstad, Justin Stoller, and Joseph Ushinsky, who are all from the University of Miami.
And their findings, as we mentioned, were published quite recently, December 12, 2024, in the Harvard Kennedy School Misinformation Review. A very timely piece of research.
Very timely. And their guiding research questions were meticulously designed to get right to the heart of the matter. They wanted to know, firstly, can simply prompting individuals to reflect on the uncertainties they might already hold within their conspiracy theory beliefs, can that actually lessen the strength of those beliefs?
Just asking them about their doubts.
Essentially, yes. Secondly, and this is crucial for our modern age, can artificial intelligence, specifically a chatbot, be employed to facilitate this specific type of self-reflection? Can AI act like a street epistemologist, basically?
That's a big one.
Huge. Furthermore, they question what roles individual predispositions, like how prone someone is to conspiracy thinking in general, and also a person's stated concern for belief accuracy. How do those factors play in? Do they help the intervention work, or do they hinder it?
And practically speaking.
Practically, they asked. What steps can researchers take to maybe bolster the efficacy of future interventions designed to reduce the strength of these often harmful beliefs? So they had a very clear roadmap.
It sounds like it. So to answer these questions, they tested 4 distinct interventions using what's called a within-subjects design. Can you explain that a bit for listeners who might not be familiar with research jargon?
Sure. A within-subjects design is quite powerful. It means that each individual participant in the study actually went through all the different experimental conditions or interventions being tested.
So instead of comparing, say, Group A who got one intervention with Group B who got another.
Right. Instead of comparing separate groups, the researchers could observe how the same person's beliefs shifted under the different prompts or tasks. This is incredibly effective because it helps isolate the impact of each specific intervention, as you're essentially controlling for all the individual differences between people, because everyone serves as their own baseline, their own control.
That makes a lot of sense. A much cleaner comparison.
It allows for a much clearer understanding of cause and effect within individuals, and, importantly, they focus their efforts on a specific segment of the population. Individuals who reported believing in a conspiracy theory, but also expressed some level of doubt.
Not the total true believers nor the total skeptics.
No, they targeted those in the middle ground. Specifically, participants who scored between a 6 and a 9 on an 11-point agreement scale, where 0 is total disagreement and 10 is full agreement with the conspiracy theory.
Why that specific group?
It was a strategic choice. It allowed them to concentrate on participants who presumably had some existing reservations, some internal conflict perhaps. The thinking was that these individuals might be potentially more open to intervention, more amenable to reflection, compared to those completely rigid in their convictions at either extreme.
Okay, so they have their target group, they have their design.
Yeah.
What were these 4 specific interventions that each participant experienced?
All right, the first intervention was labeled CT, Interact with AI, so CT for conspiracy theory. Here, participants engaged in a brief chat with an AI chatbot named Chip.
Chip the chatbot.
Chip was specifically programmed to behave like a street epistemologist. It didn't argue or provide facts. It gently guided conversations by probing individuals about their reasons for holding a belief and also asking about any reservations they might have about it. The chatbot's design really prioritized neutrality, curiosity, just asking open-ended questions without ever stating its own opinions or introducing new information. Imagine it as a very patient, non-judgmental conversational partner, simply reflecting your own thoughts back to you and asking you to elaborate or clarify.
So 0 lecturing. 0, well, actually, from the AI. Just prompting questions to encourage that self-reflection. That's a remarkably different use of AI than we often hear about, especially with all the concern about AI generating misinformation itself.
It's a very different application focusing on process over content. Then the second intervention was CT, Reflect on Reservations. This was simpler. For this one, participants were just asked to list in a free text box the specific factors or reasons that contributed to their uncertainties or reservations about a particular conspiracy theory belief they held.
So just type out your doubts.
Pretty much a direct prompt for introspection about their doubts. The third intervention was similar, but flipped. CT Reflect on Reasons. Here, participants were prompted to list, again in a free text field, the factors that supported their endorsement of a particular conspiracy theory belief.
Okay, so listing why they do believe it.
Correct. Reflecting on why they believed something, laying out their rationale, rather than focusing on their doubts. Both of these free text tasks, the reasons and the reservations, are designed to tap into that illusion of explanatory depth we talked about earlier. Forcing participants to articulate their understanding, whether it's the support or the doubts, can expose gaps or inconsistencies in their own knowledge.
Makes sense. And what was the 4th condition? You mentioned a control.
Right, the crucial control condition. This was non-CT, Reflect on Reservations. In this task, participants reflected on their uncertainties or reservations about a non-conspiratorial belief. The example given in the study is the statement, spicy food is not only flavorful, but also beneficial for metabolism.
Spicy food and metabolism. Okay, why that? Subscribing is the only way to keep the cows from learning TikTok dances?
Oh,
Like, oh my God.
the stakes have been raised.
I know, it's like we have to save the world
Yeah, we have to protect the internet.
from dancing cows.
Well, this seemingly innocuous statement serves a very important purpose. It helped the researchers determine if the effects of reflection they observed were unique to conspiracy theories, or if reflection could generally shift confidence in any type of belief, even a fairly benign, everyday one.
Ah, I see. So if confidence only dropped for the conspiracy theories after reflection, that tells you something specific is happening there. But if confidence also dropped for the spicy food belief after reflection,
Then it suggests that the act of reflection itself, the process of examining one's reasons or reservations, might reduce confidence more generally, regardless of whether the belief is conspiratorial or not. It helps isolate the mechanism.
clever design. And what specific conspiracy theories did they actually ask people about? Was it a broad range?
Oh yes, they covered a wide spectrum to ensure the findings were broadly applicable. These weren't just obscure beliefs. They were theories that have had real traction in public discourse, both historically and currently. The list included the widely discussed belief that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered to cover up a vast criminal network involving powerful people.
A very prominent one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the enduring idea that there was a broader conspiracy, not just a lone gunman, behind the assassination of President Kennedy. That one never seems to fade.
Still debated after all these years.
Indeed. They also included the assertion that the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, deliberately prevents the public from accessing natural cures for serious diseases, supposedly due to pressure from pharmaceutical companies. That's a common theme in health-related conspiracy theories.
Right, the big pharma angle.
And, of course, beliefs about a pervasive deep state, a shadowy group operating without oversight within the government, secretly manipulating policy. That resonates with many people across the political spectrum.
And very topical.
They didn't shy away from highly controversial and sensitive examples either, like claims that major school shootings such as Sandy Hook or Parkland were actually false flag attacks staged by the government or other actors.
Wow, they really went there.
They did, which is important for testing the limits. Also included was the idea that climate change is essentially a hoax, orchestrated by corrupt scientists and politicians for their own gain. A major point of contention globally.
Absolutely.
And fascinatingly, just to show how current and broad their scope was, they included a very contemporary, almost pop culture-infused one. The notion that Taylor Swift's public involvement with a Kansas City Chiefs football player was actually part of a secret plot, a psychological operation to help ensure Joe Biden's victory in the 2024 election.
The Taylor Swift psyop theory. Okay, they cover the gamut. From JFK to Swift.
They really did. This comprehensive list is important because it helps ensure the findings are potentially generalizable across different types of conspiracy theories, historical, political, health-related, even cultural. It's not just about one specific kind of belief.
That makes sense. And what about the methodology? How did they recruit people? How large was the study?
So the survey itself was conducted online by a reputable survey company called Forthright. This took place between April 1st and April 10th, 2024. Very recent data. They achieved a significant sample size, 2,036 participants. That's quite robust for this kind of experimental study, giving the findings statistical power.
And were these participants representative of the general population?
They worked hard to make it so. They used quota sampling, which means they meticulously designed their sample to mirror the demographics of the broader U.S. population, based on data from the 2016-2021 American Community Survey. This included matching quotas for key variables like sex, age groups, race and ethnicity, household income levels, and educational attainment. This meticulous approach is vital as it helps ensure the findings aren't just quirks of, say, college students or a specific online community, but are more likely to be broadly representative of American society.
That adds a lot of weight to the findings.
It does. And to maintain high data quality, which is always a concern with online surveys, they embedded attention checks within the survey. These are small, simple questions designed to ensure participants were actually reading the prompts and not just clicking through randomly.
Like, please select agree for this question.
Things like that, yes. And participants who completed the survey too quickly, suggesting they might not have engaged thoughtfully with the reflection tasks or the chatbot, were excluded from the final analysis. These are all standard, rigorous practices in survey research that lend strong credibility to their results.
Okay, so they set up this extensive, carefully designed study, large sample, representative quotas, quality checks, clever interventions based on psychological principles. let's get to the results. What did the researchers actually uncover? What were the truly illuminating and perhaps surprising key findings from all this meticulous work?
All right, the first major finding, and I think a very encouraging one, is that this approach worked. Self-reflection on beliefs, prompted in these various ways, can indeed cause belief change. The study revealed that all the interventions aimed specifically at conspiracy theories, so that's interacting with Chip the AI chatbot, reflecting on your reservations and reflecting on your reasons, all led to a statistically significant decrease in the strength of participants' beliefs about those conspiracy theories.
Wow. All three methods showed a reduction.
All three aimed at conspiracy theories did, yes. This isn't just, wishful thinking or random noise. It's a measurable, statistically significant shift downward on that 0 to 10 belief scale.
That's a powerful result in itself. Can you give us a sense of the size of that change? Was it a huge drop or more subtle?
It's a fair question. The average change in belief strength, measured pre to post intervention, showed reductions across the board for the CT tasks. Looking at the effect sizes, which statisticians use to gauge the magnitude of an effect, the Reflect on Reservations task saw the largest decrease. The Cohen's d value was minus at 0.29.
Okay, and what does NEVA 0.29 mean in practical terms?
So Cohen's d values are often interpreted as around 0.2 is small, 0.5 is medium, and 0.8 is large. So NEVA 0.29 indicates a small to medium effect size. It means it's not necessarily a revolutionary, mind-altering shift for every single person who did the task.
Right, it's not like people went from a 9 to a 0 instantly.
No, not at all. But it represents a statistically significant and meaningful reduction in belief strength when averaged across a large group. The other interventions also showed meaningful reductions. Interact with AI had a Cohen's d of NEVA 0.2, and Reflect on Reasons was NEVA 0.18. Still significant, slightly smaller effects.
And what about the control condition, reflecting on the non-conspiracy theory about spicy food? Did that show any change?
Interestingly, yes. Even reflecting on reservations about the non-conspiratorial belief yielded a decrease, with a Cohen's d of NEVA 0.21, similar in size to the AI interaction effect.
Huh. So reflecting on any belief, even a mundane one, might make you slightly less confident in it.
That seems to be what the data suggests here. We'll come back to that, but it hints that the mechanism might be more general than just targeting conspiracy theories.
Okay, but focusing on the AI for a moment. What are the implications here? AI has such a complicated, often negative reputation when it comes to information and misinformation. Generating deepfakes, spreading false narratives. But this seems to flip that narrative entirely.
This outcome is quite encouraging, I agree, and potentially a real game changer in how we think about using AI. It suggests that these kinds of AI-powered interventions hold tremendous potential. They could offer efficient, cost-effective, and highly scalable solutions for addressing beliefs that are not well supported by evidence, what researchers sometimes call epistemically unwarranted beliefs.
Scalable how? What could that look like?
Well, imagine a future where, say, public health organizations or educational institutions could deploy potentially hundreds of thousands of AI agents like Chip. Each one capable of having these nuanced, non-judgmental, personalized conversations with individuals about complex, sensitive topics, maybe vaccine hesitancy, maybe climate change skepticism, maybe even historical revisionism. The sheer scalability and potential cost-effectiveness of this approach could fundamentally transform how we address large-scale misinformation. It could move us beyond generic public service announcements or fact checks towards highly personalized, reflective interventions delivered at scale.
And the conversational nature helps.
The researchers think so. They note that the conversational style of AI chatbots might make these somewhat abstract reflection tasks feel more natural and familiar to people, compared to just, say, answering a sterile prompt in a text box. It could make a challenging cognitive task feel more accessible, more like a real dialogue.
It makes sense. And the finding that reflection also reduced belief in the non-conspiratorial idea. What does that tell us?
It's really important. It suggests that the cognitive mechanisms at play here might not be unique to conspiracy theories, or even unique to false statements necessarily. It indicates that people are, perhaps, generally open to reconsidering various types of propositions when prompted to genuinely reflect on their foundations, their reasons, their doubts. It might be a more fundamental aspect of how we hold and evaluate beliefs.
Interesting. Are there any caveats, though? Is AI the magic bullet here?
Definitely not a magic bullet. The researchers themselves are careful to add a crucial caveat. While the potential shown here is clear, some other recent research suggests that simply making large language models more powerful, more intelligent, doesn't necessarily mean they become indefinitely more persuasive. There might be a kind of ceiling to AI's effectiveness in this specific domain of belief change.
So smarter AI doesn't automatically equal better persuasion.
Not necessarily, but this particular study offers a really compelling case for using AI, even simpler AI like CHIP, specifically to foster self-reflection as a counter-misinformation tool. That's a distinct and promising application.
Okay, that's a crucial insight. The generalizability of reflection and the potential, but perhaps limited, role for AI. But then there's the second major finding you mentioned, the one that really throws a wrench in what one might intuitively expect. It's about the role of accuracy importance. This is where it gets truly fascinating, right?
This is indeed where the findings took a very counterintuitive turn. The study looked at how much participants changed their beliefs based on how important they claimed belief accuracy was to them personally.
So you'd naturally assume that people who say accuracy is extremely important would be the most open to revising their views if reflection revealed weaknesses or doubts. Right, they care about getting it right.
That's the logical assumption. But, surprisingly, the study found the opposite. Among those participants who stated that belief accuracy was extremely important to them, there was no statistically significant change in their belief strength across any of the interventions. Not for the conspiracy theories, not even for the spicy food belief. Their beliefs remained just as strong after reflection.
Wow, that is completely backwards from what you'd expect. The people who claim to care most about accuracy are the least likely to change their minds after reflection. That fundamentally challenges how we think about persuasion or even just dialogue.
It really does challenge a core assumption. Because, conversely, individuals who reported that belief accuracy was not particularly important to them, they showed significant reductions in belief strength across all the tasks.
So the people who say, hey, accuracy isn't my top priority, are the ones whose beliefs actually softened after reflection. How do the researchers explain this? Your journey to deeper understanding starts here. NavigatingBeliefs.com. Sign up. It's free.
So it's not just learning, it's an adventure.
Yeah, like a quest for knowledge.
They propose a really insightful hypothesis for this unexpected result. They suspect that the survey question asking about the importance of belief accuracy might have inadvertently captured something else entirely. Not the participants' genuine open-minded motivation to be accurate, but rather their prior confidence in the accuracy of their existing belief.
Ah, okay. Say more about that distinction.
So if someone is already utterly convinced their belief is correct, completely certain, they might just tick the box saying accuracy is extremely important. Not because they're open to questioning it if new evidence arises, but because they believe their current view is already the accurate one.
So they're essentially saying, accuracy is vital, and my belief is accurate, therefore I don't need to change it. It's an affirmation of their current certainty, not an expression of openness.
That seems to be the most plausible interpretation. They're affirming their existing conviction, not signaling a willingness to scrutinize it when prompted by a reflection. If you're already certain you're right, why would reflecting on your reasons or reservations change anything? You feel you've already got the accurate picture.
This has profound implications, doesn't it? For how we approach dialogue, how we interpret people's statements about wanting accuracy. It suggests that stated importance of accuracy might actually signal resistance to change for the highly confident.
It certainly does. This finding raises a really important and difficult question for future research. How can we more accurately measure a person's motivation for accuracy, their genuine desire to seek truth and potentially revise their views, versus simply their pre-existing confidence or certainty in their current views? It's a subtle but absolutely vital distinction.
Because it dictates how we should even begin a conversation aimed at belief revision, right?
Right. We need better tools, better questions perhaps, to understand if someone is genuinely open to persuasion or if they're basically signaling, my mind is made up and I'm confident it's the right view. That difference is critical for tailoring any kind of intervention or dialogue.
That's a fascinating nuance and a real challenge for anyone in communication, education, or even just trying to have productive disagreements. Now let's move to the third key finding, which delves into the resistance of entrenched conspiratorial thinking. How did the study define and measure this conspiracy thinking in general? Because as we discussed, there's surely a spectrum of how deeply ingrained these worldviews can be.
You're absolutely right. There is a spectrum. The study didn't just look at belief in specific conspiracy theories. It also investigated how a person's general predisposition toward conspiracy thinking affected the interventions. This refers to a more pervasive tendency to interpret events, big and small, as the product of secret, often nefarious conspiracies. It's a worldview lens.
And how did they measure that general tendency?
They used a validated psychometric instrument called the American Conspiracy Thinking Scale, or ACTS. This scale includes several statements designed to tap into that general conspiratorial mindset. Participants rate their agreement with statements like, much of our lives are being controlled by plots hatched in secret places.
Okay, quite direct.
Or, the people who really run the country are not known to the voters. Another example is, big events like wars, recessions, and the outcomes of elections are often controlled by small groups of people who are working in secret against the rest of us. Based on their agreement with these types of statements, participants were categorized as having low, middling, or high levels of generalized conspiracy thinking.
Got it. So what did they find? How did these different levels of general conspiracy thinking, low, middling, and high, respond to the reflection interventions? Did everyone show a similar shift in their specific conspiracy beliefs?
Not at all. This is where the results become quite sobering, frankly. The findings showed significant reductions in the strength of specific conspiracy beliefs among individuals who exhibited low or middling levels of generalized conspiracy thinking, according to the ACTS scale.
So for people who don't necessarily see conspiracies everywhere, the reflection prompts worked.
That's right. For these individuals whose worldview isn't perhaps entirely consumed by conspiratorial interpretations, the reflection interventions were effective in softening their conviction about the specific theories they were asked about. It suggests that if a conspiracy belief isn't deeply anchored in a pervasive, stable predisposition, it's more amenable to change through reflection. Maybe they hold a specific belief, but it's not core to their identity or how they fundamentally see the world operating.
Okay, but then there's the group that policymakers, public health officials, maybe all of us, are often most concerned about those with the highest levels of conspiratorial thinking. The people for whom the world seems almost entirely explained by secret plots and hidden hands. How did they respond? Did the reflection work for them?
Unfortunately, no. For participants scoring highest on the conspiracy thinking scale, the reflection interventions had no significant effect on the strength of their specific conspiracy theory beliefs. Their beliefs remained stubbornly resistant to these prompts.
No effect at all.
Statistically speaking, no significant reduction. And even more concerning, some results hinted, though perhaps weakly, that reflection might have inadvertently strengthened these beliefs for the most conspiratorial individuals.
Strengthen them. How could that happen?
Well, the hypothesis is that for individuals whose identity is deeply intertwined with their conspiratorial worldview, simply prompting reflection might not induce doubt. Instead, it might inadvertently give them more mental ammunition to reinforce their existing biases. Perhaps reflecting on their reasons allows them to elaborate and solidify their narrative, find new ways to connect the dots, or maybe reflecting on reservations leads them to actively dismiss those doubts as weak or irrelevant, further confirming their original stance. They might even interpret the reflection task itself as suspicious or part of some manipulation attempt.
Wow, so it's like a potential backfire effect, specifically for the most committed group. The intervention, intended to soften belief, might actually make it more rigid or consistent with their overall worldview.
That's the worrying possibility raised by these findings. It suggests that the very individuals whom policymakers and researchers are often most keen to influence, given that high levels of conspiracy thinking are sometimes linked to problematic behaviors or disengagement, appear to be the most resistant to these kinds of subtle, reflective interventions.
That is a major challenge. It really underscores that we can't just apply the same tools to everyone and expect them to work.
It absolutely does. It highlights the critical need for rethinking how interventions can be designed or adapted, perhaps quite differently, to reach such individuals. And it emphasizes the importance of always considering how pre-existing predispositions and worldviews might moderate or even negate the effectiveness of an intervention. It's also vital, as the study authors point out, to make a crucial distinction here. We need to be careful not to conflate a survey participant who simply agrees with one or maybe a few specific conspiracy theories with the popular, often caricatured image of a conspiracy theorist, someone irrationally consumed by these beliefs and impervious to all reason.
Right. Agreeing with a statement on a survey doesn't automatically mean you're wearing a tinfoil hat and acting on that belief.
Precisely. Survey agreement doesn't inherently imply deep psychological investment or a likelihood to act on those beliefs. The intervention's effectiveness differed significantly depending on this underlying predisposition, the general conspiracy thinking level, highlighting that we're dealing with a spectrum, not a simple binary of believer versus non-believer.
That's a really important nuance.
No.
Okay, so let's broaden our view a bit now, pulling these threads together. What are the wider implications and maybe the ethical considerations that arise from these findings, especially thinking about this dual role of AI and the future of tackling misinformation?
Well, one major positive implication is the confirmation of the power of non-confrontational methods. The study clearly highlights that weakening conspiracy theory beliefs can happen without introducing new facts, without statistics, without engaging in direct arguments or debunking.
Which, as we discussed, often fail anyway.
Right. This finding strongly supports the foundational premise of approaches like street epistemology, that prioritizing self-reflection over direct persuasion can be remarkably effective, at least for some people. And this approach carries distinct ethical advantages too.
How so?
Because it fundamentally respects individual autonomy. It avoids the manipulative or coercive tactics that people often fear when they hear about interventions designed to change beliefs. It's about empowering the individual to examine their own thoughts and reasoning processes, rather than being explicitly told what to think by an external authority, whether human or AI.
That's a significant ethical plus. But then there's the AI itself. You called it a double-edged sword earlier. On one hand, there's so much legitimate concern about AI spreading disinformation, creating deepfakes, manipulating opinion. But here we see it potentially doing good, improving the epistemic quality, the accuracy and justification of public belief. How do we reconcile that?
It absolutely is a double-edged sword, and this study really showcases the hopeful edge. Despite all the valid concerns about AI's capacity to spread disinformation, these findings present a powerful counterpoint. This same kind of technology can potentially be used constructively to genuinely improve the quality of people's beliefs on a large scale. And importantly, because the street epistemologist chatbot used here doesn't introduce its own facts or statistics, the common and very serious concern about AI hallucinations, the AI confidently making up false information, is significantly reduced in this specific application. It's not generating new content, it's facilitating an internal dialogue based on the user's own input.
So less risk of the AI itself being the source of misinformation in this context.
Much less risk in this specific implementation. However, and this is a huge however, the researchers are rightly very careful to acknowledge the significant ethical concerns that inevitably accompany such a potentially powerful tool.
Like what specifically?
Like the potential for misuse by malign actors, as they put it. We're not just talking hypothetically here. Imagine a state-sponsored group, or a political campaign, or even a cult developing sophisticated AI chatbots. But instead of being designed to foster genuine self-reflection and truth-seeking,
They're designed to do the opposite.
Precisely. Imagine an AI designed to subtly guide users to doubt accurate, well-established scientific consensus, maybe on vaccines or climate change, or an AI built to subtly amplify grievances, foster polarization, or erode trust in democratic institutions or credible news sources. This isn't just about spreading false facts, it's about manipulating the very process of belief formation and evaluation itself. Leveraging the same kinds of reflective, Socratic questioning techniques shown to be effective here, but twisting them towards harmful ends. That's a truly chilling prospect.
Using the tool's strength, its ability to prompt reflection for manipulation instead of clarification.
That's the fear. It underscores the critical need for developing robust ethical frameworks, transparency requirements, and maybe even regulations around the deployment of these kinds of persuasive or belief-influencing AI tools. We must be incredibly vigilant about the intentions behind their use and the potential for large-scale manipulation.
A powerful tool requires powerful safeguards. That makes sense. And what about the implications for how we design future interventions, given that the study found these heterogeneous effects, meaning the interventions work differently for different people?
Yes, those heterogeneous effects are a crucial takeaway. The fact that the interventions work differently based on factors like the participants' perceived accuracy importance, or rather, their confidence and their general level of conspiracy thinking, well, it underscores a vital point. A one-size-fits-all approach to belief change is simply unlikely to cut it.
So we need tailored approaches.
It strongly suggests that. Different individuals may require different kinds of reflection prompts, maybe different engagement strategies, tailored to their specific psychological predispositions and their existing belief systems. For example, for someone with lower levels of conspiratorial thinking and maybe less initial certainty, a simple prompt to list their reservations might be quite effective, as the study showed.
But for someone deeply entrenched, highly confident, high in general conspiracy thinking, you wouldn't just use the same prompt or the same AI interaction.
Probably not. For those individuals who are most confident in their beliefs, or for whom conspiratorial thinking is a core part of their identity, the implication from this research is that interventions likely need to be much more nuanced. They should perhaps focus on gradually cultivating seeds of doubt, fostering intellectual humility, or promoting open-mindedness as a value.
So playing the long game rather than aiming for a quick fix.
Indeed. It might involve multiple interactions over a much longer period, rather than a single brief intervention like in this study. The goal might shift from attempting an immediate wholesale change in conviction, which seems unlikely for this group, towards simply creating a path towards potential reconsideration down the line. It's about gently opening a door, not trying to kick it down. A much more patient, perhaps more realistic process for those most resistant.
That sounds like a much more complex challenge. And finally, zooming out one last time, what does this tell us about how our minds work when it comes to beliefs in general? The fact that these reflection interventions successfully reduce conviction in both the conspiracy theories and the non-conspiratorial spicy food beliefs seems quite revealing.
It really does seem revealing. The fact that the interventions reduce belief strength across both types of propositions, conspiratorial and non-conspiratorial, suggests that similar underlying cognitive mechanisms might be at play when we reflect on any belief we hold. It hints that maybe the process of articulating our reasons or acknowledging our reservations generally tends to make us slightly less dogmatic, slightly more aware of the complexities or uncertainties, regardless of the specific content of the belief.
So it connects the dots between different kinds of belief evaluation.
Potentially, yes. This opens up a fascinating avenue for future research to explore these mechanisms more fully. Could we develop a deeper, more unified understanding of how beliefs are formed, how they're maintained and resisted, and, crucially, how they can be reconsidered, not just for problematic beliefs like conspiracy theories, but across the entire spectrum of human thought? It shifts the focus from just what you believe to how you believe it and how readily you examine that process.
That's a really profound thought. Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, our listener, as you navigate this incredibly complex information landscape we all live in? This deep dive into the Harvard Kennedy School research suggests something quite powerful. That self-reflection, even when it's gently guided by something like an AI chatbot, has a real measurable capacity to reduce the conviction people hold in their beliefs. And yes, that includes complex and often sticky conspiracy theories.
But, and it's a significant but, it's clearly not a universal solution. The study also starkly reminds us that those individuals with the most deeply entrenched conspiratorial worldviews, or those who are already extremely confident in their existing beliefs, prove far more resistant to these methods. In fact, for some, these reflection prompts might even inadvertently harden their stance.
So, if confronting a belief head-on often leads to it becoming more firmly held, as prior research suggests, and if gently prompting self-reflection can, for many, soften that belief. What does this tell us about the future of open discourse, especially in a world increasingly shaped by digital interactions, algorithms, and artificial intelligence?
It really forces us to reconsider how we engage with ideas, doesn't it? Both our own ideas and those of others we disagree with. Maybe the path forward isn't always about winning the argument with better facts, but about fostering a culture and perhaps even using tools that encourage thoughtful self-examination on all sides.
That leads us to our closing thought for you. We're genuinely very curious to hear your perspective on all of this. Have you personally experienced moments where reflecting on your own strongly held beliefs, maybe prompted by a conversation, a book, or just quiet thought actually shifted your perspective? Or have you tried prompting reflection in others? What methods do you find most effective in fostering open-mindedness, either in yourself or when talking with others? Is it about asking questions? Is it about finding common ground first? Please share your insights and experiences in the comments section wherever you're listening to this. Let's continue this conversation.
Until next time.